Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you another FPL video. So in this one we're going to be breaking down our scores for game week 2 as well as some observations made across the game week that hopefully will help you guys decide what your transfers and plans are going to be from game week 3 onwards. So let's jump into the scores first and foremost. Overall scoring 55 points so far without the Liverpool boys coming in yet, with them still yet to play tomorrow against Crystal Palace. So yeah, very, very happy overall again. I think, we're still above average in terms of the scoring. A very, very slight green arrow to 2 million from 2.1 million. Again, still very, very happy with that. There is still some, disappointments, I guess, that I'll talk about shortly. But overall, again, very, very happy with the team. So Sanchez coming in with the 6 points for the clean sheet versus Newcastle, and that also helped Trippier pick up 7 points as well, also scoring a clean sheet plus a bonus point. Walker, no doubts really that he was going to be pretty much a 6-point man week in, week out for us. He hasn't quite matched Cancelo's output, especially with the assist and the bonus that he obtained during the Bournemouth match at the end, registering the assist for that own goal. It was a little bit unfortunate really that otherwise I think I would have been kind of very, very similar to Cancelo's points with Walker, but again, it's a decision that I'll take on board and hold. Similar story really with Saka. So again, he was racking up bonus points from what I saw. I didn't see the game, only heard it on BT Score. So Martinelli clearly proving to be the kind of better pick from those two. Saka only scoring 8 points so far across the 2 game weeks for me, and Martinelli superseding that quite significantly, already raising to 6.2 million as well. So a little bit of a kind of maybe a variance issue there, that Saka on a different day maybe returns a little bit more. But overall, yeah, it's kind of, again, I flipped a coin. I've owned again that kind of decision, and I'm still happy with Saka as an option. I think Arsenal, from an attacking outfit, he's still going to pop up and still bring us returns at some point in the future. So I'm happy to hold on to him for now. Very disappointed, I think, like many managers, owning Neto. I think, again, another just 3-point, 2-point kind of score from him. Really, I think creatively he's definitely got the potential to do more. However, I think Wolves are missing that target man in Jimenez, really. I think Neto's output maybe would be slightly better if Jimenez was in the team at the moment, but with him out injured, I think really from game week 3 onwards, he's kind of number 1 on my transfer out list. Just not sure where to go as of yet. Then moving on to Mason Mount, I think, registering 2 points today against Spurs, I think was really, really unfortunate. I did watch the game this evening. He had 2 very, very good opportunities. One just kind of scuffing by the near post, and one kind of early on into the game, about 20 minutes in. He, in Mason Mount style, give himself that extra kind of yard inside, just outside the box, inside the D, and just couldn't finish it. He just seemed to skyrocket over the bar. So a little bit unfortunate. I think, again, maybe a bit of variance involved here, where I decided to go with 2 8 million midfielders, and neither of them really have returned other than Saka's assist from game week 1 as of yet. But looking at Chelsea's fixtures moving forward, although in my previous breakdown video he was definitely somebody that I considered maybe moving on, I think really Chelsea, from an attacking perspective, they did look good. I did anticipate them to look good against Spurs, to be honest. There was a lot of space in the midfield for Mason Mount to explore, and I think that's going to happen even more so with the teams that they're playing moving forward. So I don't think he's necessarily on my radar as a transfer out just yet. I think he deserves at least a few more weeks on the easier fixtures before we fully make a decision on him. Going into the 2 forwards, so Gabriel Jesus involved in absolutely every single goal Arsenal scored. 2 goals, 2 assists, resulting in 19 points. Leicester definitely looking very, very leaky there with Ward in goal. I do believe they've signed another goalkeeper now, though, but I'm not sure how that pushes Ward out, or if that does make a difference. But definitely their back line is not looking the strongest at the moment, conceding those 4 goals. I think, anybody, congratulations to the managers that, of course, captained him. I think he was a solid option between Haaland and Salah, though, that it seemed to be those two that were pretty much ahead of the pack. So yeah, again, congratulations if you did captain him, bringing yourself in a lovely 38-point haul. And then Haaland, I think, really, to be honest with him, to be honest, it was a little bit unfortunate again with him. He only registered that one assist, but I saw from highlights of the match that there was a couple of opportunities that Phil Foden had to pretty much square it or simple ball to Haaland, and didn't unfortunately do that. So Haaland only registered the assist. Still bringing in 10 points with the captaincy though, so it is double digits once we doubled the 5 points he scored for us. So again, I think that we can, at the moment, prior to the Crystal Palace match with Liverpool, I definitely feel comfortable in the reasons and the decision making before the game week started to put the armband on him. Of course, again, we don't know what Salah might do. I think I saw an article that he averages over 10 points against Crystal Palace. And of course, with it being a home fixture as well at Anfield, I have absolutely no doubts that he'll be scoring some points for us. So unfortunately, not doubled on this occasion for us, but I still think that he will return. Really, to be honest, the definition of my game week in terms of, I think, rank in terms of what happens, say, between now and Monday night, really, is Andy Robertson. I think Trent and Salah are owned too significantly across the player base to really make an impact on my overall rank too much. But I think as long as Robertson outscores Luis Diaz, which I think is a kind of balanced ownership between him and Diaz, I may be able to overtake a few people, maybe getting a few 100,000. But the reality is Cancelo and Reece James and players like this that are just notorious, great FPL assets, had them in many drafts before the season started, but decided to go without them. And they have unfortunately hurt me for a couple of weeks in a row. But again, it's early days, 2 million in terms of a rank. I'm not knee-jerking too much. I'm staying patient with my decision-making, something that I maybe haven't done in previous seasons. So I'm looking forward to kind of having a look at the options I've got coming into game week 3 this week. As I say, as it stands at the moment, really Neto seems to be the weakest link of this starting 11 and one that I will be considering moving on. So as mentioned in the build-up to the video, I've also got another section discussing 5 observations that I made in the game week. Let me know in the comments if you find these useful. I mean, for me, it's kind of, again, I do have the kind of the fortune of being able to catch quite a few of the games live. I was away with the family yesterday, so I didn't watch everything. Managed to listen to parts of it on the radio, some stuff on BT Score while I was out and about. But generally speaking, I think this helps kind of maybe put into context that we can pull up stats, we can have a look at fixture tickers, we can have a look at XG versus XA and all these different outlets. But I definitely think from an eye test perspective, it's important to register the thoughts and kind of the reasoning as to why we may be looking at players in the future. So first up, I'm going to be mentioning the Everton match. So really, they haven't been able to convert the chances created with the lack of their centre forward. So until Frank Lampard starts, Rondon or Calvert-Lewin is really back fit, I think this could be a fixture that's very, very comfortable from a defensive standpoint. I think Villa scoring 2 goals, really they could have had more. I think, to be honest, Everton were fortunate to have had the own goal from Digne. It did give them the boost at that last 10 minutes of the match and potentially could have drawn that match 2-2. But really, from the chances that Anthony Gordon had, Damari Gray, you can see that yes, they are great midfielders and potentially they could be options moving forward, but I would say that with the lack of Calvert-Lewin or just some kind of target man for them, and of course losing Richarlison in the summer window, I think has really hurt them this season. So we'll see what they can do. Of course, again, it's only 2 weeks in, but that was kind of my takeaway from that game, really, more so watching Everton than Villa. I think obviously Bailey owners will be very disappointed that he started on the bench, maybe from your perspective, if you are an owner of him, it may be time to look elsewhere for him, maybe to convert him into a 4.5 million midfielder as a bit of fodder and try and use that 0.5 elsewhere. But yeah, nothing really to note, I don't think, from a Villa perspective. Defensively, they looked pretty good, I would say. There was a few bits of shakiness. Obviously, with Digne's own goal, very unfortunate. I don't think necessarily he deserved that. But from what I can tell, I don't think they're a bad investment, but maybe something to consider moving forward. So talking about Arsenal again, I think really they just have to be mentioned, scoring 4 goals against, again, another leaky side in Leicester. Arsenal's attack just looked like an area that we really need to invest in if you've not already done so. As mentioned in the breakdown of the points, I think really Saka has been a little bit unfortunate really in terms of his returns. Martinelli's just that other side of variance, which happens in FPL from time to time. So again, if you are an owner of Martinelli, Saka and Jesus, then brilliant. If you were a Zinchenko owner though this week, then again that goes back to the previous observations that I made, where really Arsenal were very, very lucky last week not to concede to Crystal Palace. They've conceded 2 goals to, you would arguably say maybe a more creative side in Leicester, but this is a home fixture, so you would anticipate that they would have been able to shut up shop a little bit, but Zinchenko only scoring 1 point, so the complete flip side of what he managed in game week 1. So again, variance within FPL is a very important factor. So I think Arsenal attack is a much more kind of important area to invest in over their defence. And also Leicester, it is worth mentioning that they had some really strong passages of play from the highlights. I think James Maddison is definitely going to be a strong pick from game week 5 onwards, though. I think that's when they play Manchester United, who, of course, after losing 4-0 to Brentford, they don't look very, very good defensively at all. Their organisation just isn't there yet. They haven't hit the ground running this season. So potentially if that trend continues, then I think Maddison could be a great option from game week 5 through to a wild card. So moving on to point number 3, Manchester City comfortably beating Brighton 4-0. And I think really the takeaway for me is 2 of their midfielder options in Gundogan and De Bruyne. So Gundogan has just been announced as the team captain for the club, and I think that absolutely nails his starting position. I think at £7.5 million he could be an absolutely fantastic route into their midfield, and he just crops up in the right places at the right time. He had a streak in him a couple of seasons ago where he just seemed to be on the end of everything. He was just in and around the box in terms of poacher goals, instinctive finishing. He's pretty much a full package in my opinion, and for £7.5 million he could easily take a sort of a downgrade move from one of the 8 million midfielders I have in play at the moment. So definitely one to keep an eye on. De Bruyne also, of course, one to mention that he registered a double-digit haul as well and looks really sharp in the new season. I do think he's one to watch still, but I would caveat that with the fact that he may become a minutes risk as the European fixtures draw closer. We don't know really how important Pep, in terms of his focus, is going to be in terms of the group stages. You'd anticipate he wants to win, say, the first 2, and then once teams up and running, 6 points on the board, potentially then De Bruyne is rested on those midweek fixtures. But with it being such a fixture congested time frame, I think again he's maybe one that's slightly on the riskier side out of those 2 options. So I'm leaning much towards Gundogan in terms of that third City asset currently, and I think he could potentially be a very good differential moving forward. Moving on to point number 4 then in Leeds, first of all here with Rodrigo and Harrison. So I personally think they potentially could become very pivotal picks at 6 million each. I think Rodrigo is outscoring all anticipation really for him, being registered now as a midfielder rather than a forward, but yet playing quite far up the pitch for Leeds. With Bamford again now injured, I think it is only a slight injury though. Potentially he becomes that striking force for Leeds, and I think Harrison really is an enabler to him as well in terms of the assists and pretty much what he does on the ball and off the ball. I think both of them at 6 million each, if you cannot quite stretch to Martinelli now based on his price rises, that their fixtures look very good from game week 5 onwards. So not necessarily against Chelsea next week, as that's potentially a little bit tougher for Leeds to break through, but I definitely think those 2 can be considered from game week 5 onwards. And then again, as touched on during the points breakdown, I really do believe that Mason Mount was unlucky not to register today. I think Spurs didn't have control of the midfield. It just seemed that Mount was picking up the ball in lots of different kind of pockets, but in and behind, and pretty much just dictating the movement and the play in terms of the game. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean anything from an FPL perspective. But again, I was a little bit shaky on him last week. I didn't think he really registered too much in terms of touches or big chances. He looked a little bit more like the Mason Mount that I wanted to invest in pre-season, and definitely something I think that I won't knee-jerk on just yet in terms of only scoring me 5 points so far across the 2 game weeks. The question mark I think on Spurs from their perspective is still that for their wing backs, we don't know who's going to get the most minutes. Sessegnon was brought off at the half, pretty much just after half time or at half time. So I think again he's not necessarily someone that we can now invest in. Perisic started on the bench. Doherty's still not had any minutes yet. Emerson Royale seems to be the person that's getting the most time. but essentially didn't produce anything today. So I think really they're still a bit of a risk. I think they could potentially become options when their defensive fixtures swing, but for now I think that's a wait and see or hold fire. But definitely from a Chelsea defensive perspective, I think Cucurella and James. I did mention Cucurella again in my team selection video as a possible, maybe controversial pick really in terms of options. But Tuchel come out in the press conference and basically said that he's ahead of Ben Chilwell in his fitness levels. So I anticipate that Cucurella is going to be getting a lot of game time moving forward, and at £5 million, I genuinely think he looks like a great option. So he potentially could come into my thinking from this game week, maybe to free up some funds from a defensive point of view, but we will have to wait and see this week once I've broken it down a little bit further. So I think pretty much those two from a Chelsea perspective look like they're bringing in the most value. James was looking really, really sharp today, actually much better than he did, I think, in game week 1. He got the goal. He looked, a threat pretty much all game long. He was whipping in crosses. There was Kai Havertz's chance that just didn't go into the back of the net that could have registered him an assist as well. So I am kind of regretting not going with him, to be honest, but I did think or anticipate that Chelsea weren't going to be keeping any clean sheets. And so far, only one of the 2 games has registered in that. So, hopefully you find this information useful, guys. Like I say, I like to bring the eye test from what I've seen based on highlights or watching as much of the games as possible to the table, just so that we can use this as well as statistics and support websites and all the other information that we like to gather prior to the game week deadline, just to assist us. So again, I hope you find the video useful. If you're new around here, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Of course, the mini league code as well is on screen if you haven't already joined that. Let me know how you've got on prior to the Liverpool and Crystal Palace fixture in terms of your points this week. Did it go to plan? What's your thoughts moving into game week 3? Let me know in the comments, guys. So again, thank you very much for tuning in and the support, and I'll see you in the next video.